Welcome to Leadership Unlocked, an interview-style podcast providing insights on how to lead people. Proudly brought to you by Human Interactions Australia. Well, hello and welcome to Leadership Unlocked and our next episode. This is a very different episode because today we have two people on our episode. We have Marissa Sandler and Lauren Hockley from a company called Careseekers. So welcome, ladies. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having us.
No, absolutely pleasure. We're doing it over Zoom because we are in the middle of the COVID pandemic in New South Wales again, and we're in lockdown. So the sound will be a little bit different tonight than you're normally used to, but it's not that bad, I'm sure. So as always, we allow our guests to give their business a little bit of a plug. I think, Marissa, I think you're going to take that lead tonight, aren't you? Are you going to give Careseekers a plug for us?
Absolutely. So Careseekers is an online platform and it directly connects families, individuals and organisations with in-home aged care and disability support workers. And this direct connection allows for people to choose their own worker. They get their support when they want it, on the times and days that they want it, and it covers a range of areas. So it might be social support, domestic assistance, personal support, personal care, meal preparation, all of those things that mean somebody can live their life on their terms.
Yeah, right. Wow. And how long's the business been going?
The business has been going about 5 years now.
Yeah, right. And so relationship between you and Lauren?
Lauren and I are sisters. We co-founded the business, and then as we've evolved through running the business, obviously when we first started the business, we essentially both just did everything. But as time's gone on, as the company's grown, we've got very defined roles. I'm the CEO of the business, and Lauren is in charge of all the tech and marketing.
Right. And how does that work? Lauren might ask you this question. Are you the older sister or the younger sister?
I'm the younger sister.
So how does that work? How does it work having the older sister being the boss? You know, as we start to think about leadership in organisations, how does that work for you?
It works perfectly. I think it's a natural transition from big sister to big boss, CEO. I think it really plays to Marissa's skills, being the CEO, and it's always worked really well. We did an accelerator when we first started, and the guy who was running it was like, we were both like co-founder, co-CEOs, and he was like, no, one of you needs to be the CEO, and that needs to be Marissa. And so it works really well.
Yeah, in that space, that acceleration space, they're very keen on having defined roles, aren't they? And I know even in the family business circles, it's not often you will get a co-CEO, and some would argue that it never works. My brother-in-law and my wife are co-CEOs and have been for some time, and they're still talking. So it is an interesting space. So obviously you both set up the business. How do you differentiate yourselves in meetings? Because at times you're CEO and marketing tech head, but then at other times you're directors of the business. So do you differentiate yourself well enough or good enough when you're in those meetings?
I think so. I think the fact that Marissa's the CEO means like the buck stops with her, probably with everything but marketing and tech. And then I guess I run those two, and I really don't defer to her on those like two departments, I guess. Yes. Because there's so much she has to think about. It's more just because any customer thing, anything to do with customers, anything to do with staff, anything to do with accounting, anything to do with, regulation and registrations and all the compliance, like that all sits with her. So just to kind of like take something off her plate, she's the CEO of all of that. And then when it comes to decisions around tech and marketing, I try and not have to make her have decisions around those as well.
Yeah. And how about for you, Marissa? How does this relationship work for you, being CEO and having some things taken off you, but you've got quite a lot of responsibility?
I think it works really well. I feel very, very fortunate that the person running those two very important parts of the business. I mean, we're a tech platform, so tech is absolutely critical to what we are, is somebody who I completely trust. I do not even turn my heads to that part of the business most of the time because I know that it's in safe hands with Lauren. I think just going back to your question before, internally, we are so clear with the staff. They know what to come to me with and they know what to go to Lauren with. And I don't think there's ever much confusion. Like, we wear our hats very clearly to them. So then when we're in an external meeting, we don't both go to every external meeting. If it's a meeting that's appropriate for my skill set, I'll go. And if it's a tech marketing meeting, Lauren will go. And occasionally we'll say to each other, will you come with me to this meeting? I'd love your view on it. I'd love your input on it. And when we're in those meetings, we're in those meetings as co-founders of Careseekers.
Yeah,
like, we're never going to people, hi, I'm the CEO. Hi, I'm the CMO and tech lead. Like, we don't do it like that externally. Externally together, it's co-founders.
Yeah, nice. That's a nice way to play it, isn't it?
I think it's just been a natural evolution of things. I mean, at the beginning, we used to go to every single meeting together. It's evolved so much. And now we very rarely do an external meeting together.
Yeah, right. I quite like I feel like there's a lot of trust between both of you. And of course, that comes from being family. Well, that can work the other way for some families as well. But obviously trust is an important part for both of you in this relationship and for the business. Can you talk to that a little bit about what your thoughts are on trust and how important it is as a leader to have that in your leadership team?
Sure. I think it's absolutely critical. I mean, we're very fortunate in that we are sisters. So the trust that we have in each other is lifelong. I know sisters who've tried to work together who are very, very, very good friends, and they go, it's just not for them running a business, Yeah. So I think it can go one way or the other, and not actually saying that that's about trust, but I think when you are family and you have that bond and you have decided to work together and you know you can make it work, one of the key reasons would be because you trust each other so deeply. We've also very much always trusted our senior staff. Always. We have a very strong trust relationship with whoever is in that senior or those senior roles. I couldn't imagine working with anyone that I did not trust. I think it is so fundamental. I don't know, we're a small business. I don't know if that changes as you get bigger, but I just could not imagine having somebody in charge of one aspect of our business and thinking I don't trust them to do that. Because if I didn't trust them to do that, I would start micromanaging them. I would start doing their job. So then why have I hired them to do it?
Yeah.
We have to trust them.
I guess two things come out of that, right? Is that, if you're micromanaging, that's kind of a sign that maybe trust has been wrecked in your organisation. But the other thing is I'd ask is, how do you recruit when you don't know these people? How do you recruit and get that sense of trust, or do you give them trust until it's broken?
We've had an interesting journey with that. So when we first interviewed people, we did a skills-based interview. Do you have the skills to do this work? Now we do one skills-based interview and we do a values interview. We are a completely values-obsessed organisation. We have very strong core values and we hang everything off that. And when we're hiring, we then we think somebody's got the skills, we then bring them in for a second interview where we go through the values, and it would become very clear whether there's a value alignment or not. Nice. So when we hire, we know they've got the skills, we believe they've got the value alignment, and we do begin by trusting them. The trust is there and it's there to be broken in a way. Like we start off trusting them because we think they're a good fit, and if it started to progress and it was clear that, oh no, then we'd know that the trust wasn't there. But we definitely start off with a level of trust.
Yeah, right.
That's my experience of how we've hired people.
Yeah, sure. And Lauren, so values are strong. I'm going to put you on the spot now. What are the company core values?
This is a test. I
can guarantee the listeners that you're not looking at a piece of paper. Right?
I am not. We have positivity, care, empowerment, integrity, and creativity.
Nice. And did you come up with that as just the two of you, or were these values driven by the team that you had at the time?
No, I think it came from possibly the need for values, based on maybe some things going on with staff at the time, and we realized we needed to have really strong values that we would always talk to. Being a small company, things can get, I guess, personal, but when you talk about the values, you're really just talking about the values of the company. Yeah. And so we sat down, and it was very much driven by Marissa, and she came up with these values. And now they're like hang on our wall and everyone knows them. And I think, things like care, it's like we deliver care, but we care about our staff, and we care about each other, and we care about our customers, and we care about the workers who are delivering the care. So kind of like they all kind of work in with what we do, but also the kind of company that we are building.
Nice. And so what's your experience as leaders? Lauren, I'll start with you, but what's your experience as a leader? You're now in this leadership role. You're a part owner of a startup business of 5 years. What's been your journey to get here, for use of a word?
I think it's always been about building a company, and building, getting more customers and getting more care workers and building this two-sided marketplace and seizing opportunities. And probably only in the last year or two, it's focused more on okay, well, now there are staff looking up to you, and what kind of a leader do you want to be? I guess maybe not being the CEO, I haven't focused too much on my leadership journey, and I know Marissa can speak to that more, but I just focus on creating a place of work that I would have wanted to work at, because in the past, I think I worked for a lot of startups, advertising agencies, and I worked for some great ones, and I worked for a great charity in the UK, and that was a place I wanted to work, and they put a lot of effort into that, and I worked for smaller companies, and some were places that I just did not want. I would never want a company to look like that, and others were great. So I've just taken all those experiences, and my day, I'm always trying to create a work environment where I would have wanted to work in my 20s and early 30s. So that's probably more my leadership journey. Whereas I know Marissa, being the CEO, is spent more time looking at, her role as the leader of the company.
Do you want to talk to that, Marissa?
Yeah, I think similarly to Lauren, in the beginning, we were just doing it, trying to get customers, trying to keep it afloat. It was just the two of us. Then we hired one staff, then we hired another staff, and probably was still quite unaware of the fact, okay, we're leading a company. But then about 2 years ago, our team today is probably about 20 people. And so 2 years ago, it was probably about 14 people. And I think I remember it sort of really dawning on me, no, I am the leader now. Lauren and I are the leaders. And as CEO, I am the leader. And I really decided to embark on that journey around being a leader. I am so fortunate in that I've had I've generally had really fantastic bosses from the second that I left university. And so first thing I did was draw on a lot of what I reflected on what I'd liked about my bosses and drew on a lot of that. So I did have this sort of treasure trove that I could go into myself. And I remember reflecting, one of my best bosses that I've ever had was at the Ombudsman, and she very much, when something went bad, she owned it. If someone in our team did something wrong, she owned it, she took it on. And when someone did something good, she gave it to them straight away. So she very much, which when you're in a team, it makes you feel so safe, and it allows you to take risks, to think creatively, because you know that if you do something bad, you're not going to get the finger pointed at you. And if you do something good, it's really going to be acknowledged. Your boss isn't going to take the credit for it. So I sort of reflected on a lot of those experiences. But then I also just sort of went more externally. I thought, I'm not the first person who's ever been a leader. And I really sort of started to educate myself. I joined an organization called EO more recently, but I really got into podcasts and books around leadership. And there are just so many wonderful resources out there. I particularly loved a book I read called Radical Candor, which made me really reflect on the way I had been a leader in the past and how I wanted to be a leader. I think in the past she talks about ruinous empathy. I think I'd lean towards that, where I would just go, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry to hear that. And just eventually to the point where I was sort of compassion fatigued by things that staff may have brought up, to being much more direct with them, and having a much more direct style of leadership. And I think that's the way that that way of being direct really resonated with me. And it's a leadership style that I very consciously adopt. I let staff know, even we've made new hires, and when I onboard them, I let them know. I say, I'm very direct in my leadership style. You can be direct with me too. And it's great. That way we'll just, if there's an issue, we'll just work through it.
Yeah.
So I've just drawn a lot on those external sources. There's some fantastic podcasts that I've listened to where they sort of look at particular issues, and I will, if I am facing an issue, like I need to have a tough conversation, I'll literally go through these podcasts and look for ones where they talk about how to have tough conversations. I don't feel in any way that one needs to reinvent the wheel on leadership in 2021. There is just so much out there to tap into.
Yeah, it's a bit of a beef of mine that often we see organisations getting on the next, fad type of leadership model or diagnostic, and it's like, actually, there's a lot of stuff that's been going since the 50s and 60s that is still incredibly relevant, incredibly powerful, and there is no reason to reinvent the wheel, as you say. It's really quite powerful. So who wrote the book? What was the book? Say the book's names again.
So a book that really resonated with me was a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And she talks about sort of 4 types of leadership. And I could really identify the way that I had been and did want to move on from in one of the leadership styles. And I really liked this particular leadership style. Called Radical Candor. That one really worked for me.
So it's interesting because you really, what I'm hearing is the ability to be really self-aware of your own behaviour, like the whole emotional intelligence piece, right? So being really aware of your own behaviour and being able to adapt and be flexible when needed is critical, right? And you seem to have a good handle of that at the moment.
Yes, but definitely, yes, I do think it is those things. Whether or not I've got a good handle of that, I'm not sure. But I know another thing that was very eye-opening is we had one of a staff member leave, and we did an exit interview, and she pointed out something about my leadership style, which I very much took on board as well. So I think some of it you try to be self-aware, but sometimes you just aren't. Like, it actually takes someone else to point out to you a way that you are behaving so that you can change it. And I think as daunting as it can be, asking your staff for feedback on your leadership style is something important. And it's not something, we've only done it in exit interviews, but it's something I'd love to get the confidence to do with the staff who we have now, and hope that they would answer direct, with honesty.
Yeah. And for you, Lauren, you talked about there were environments that you worked in that you didn't like, without naming people or naming organisations, of course. What were some of the things that were happening that you didn't like?
I think it was high stress environments, very fast paced, mainly in ad agency world, which I didn't love. A lot of there was a lack of emphasis on the development of the staff. It was all about just doing what was in front of you. And I think there was, as Marissa spoke about, there was a lot of blame as well when things went wrong. And it was actually the complete opposite of what Marissa said. All the blame when something went wrong, and then all the glory to the main person when things went right. So I didn't love that. But then I had experiences at other, I worked at another fintech startup, and they were just incredible. I just thought they were building this small company, and they were really the co-founders were really into sport, and literally you could leave and it was totally fine to leave for over an hour and a half, go to the gym, come back, shower, sit back down, and they didn't blink an eye. They just really took people's well-being in, time before well-being was such a big thing. So they took that really seriously. So I think, I think those were probably two places where like they were like chalk and cheese in what they were good about and what they weren't. I think also the other places where I guess just, coming straight out of uni and going into marketing roles, I didn't have a lot of great mentorship, I think, in like the marketing managers and senior marketing people who were on, ahead of me. So I guess just that lack of mentorship. I guess when you are working in like advertising marketing, it's all about like it's all about what, like it's very here and now, and it's fast paced. So you
very task focused, right?
Yeah, very task focused.
Exactly. It's extremely task focused. But I think it's interesting too, and maybe Marissa, you might want to answer this. Is that I think it can change easy depending on how well your business is going or not going. Like if things are struggling, I think it's very easy to get very task focused and just focus on getting business, where if business is going well, I think we can then focus on people. But it's really not a great way to operate, is it?
Totally. And I think I have two friends who work in, I guess it's organizational development, like leadership and organizational development. And they were always, from the very early days of me setting up Careseekers, were talking to me about values and how important it is to put these foundations in. And I remember initially thinking, I've just got to like get the business running. I've just got to make money. I've just got to get it flowing. Like how on earth can I be dealing with that, putting that in place? But if I could go back and say to myself at that early time, I go, just get those values in place. They will lead to you to all the other things that you're trying to achieve. It is a little bit chicken and egg in a way. Like you actually should put in place all those things at the beginning, even though they don't feel like they're the main game. You're just trying to get your revenue going. They actually will help you. And the earlier you put that stuff in, the easier you make your journey. It leads you to, I think, having a much more consistent and a better management style from the beginning, because you're thinking about it from the beginning.
It becomes the filter for decision making, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And did you did them yourself, or did you get somebody to come in and do some kind of activity with you to develop those values, or you just sat through and worked them out about what was important to you?
Ourselves. The purpose of our business is so clear, and like Lauren was saying, we want it to be a place that we want to work. We know what our values are. It was actually such an easy thing for us to do. I did get a lot of input from my friends. I'm fortunate that I do have friends who work in that space, and just in friendly conversations, they were sort of explaining to me, yes, you sit down, you write your values, this is what you think about. But then the two of us just did it ourselves, and it didn't actually take us all that long. It was just so easy and natural. We're a purpose-driven business. It's just so in the fabric of what we do, our values. Like we truly.
I think that just senses, it tells me that there's an alignment amongst across both of you. Okay, there's the sister thing, but there's this alignment about purpose, and there's an alignment about how we do things, and you just articulated it. I know that. Candice and I and Candy, we sat down some months ago ourselves and did our values, and it was pretty easy as well, actually, wasn't it? And I guess you're drawn to each other to work with each other because almost surreptitiously you already have these values.
Definitely. And sometimes we always say we're like one brain, and we need another co-founder to look at things very differently to the two of us. And over time, we have brought in people who definitely look at things differently and have different skill sets.
And so you're growing. What's the structure like now? Have you got some senior people sitting in between you as such, so that it kind of filters all the stuff that doesn't necessarily need to get to you?
Yes. And it has been an absolute game changer having that. I think a mistake that we made, Lauren and I are can work across many, many different things. Obviously, like anyone who's started their own business has to be able to, because you just don't have anyone else doing it at a point in time. And I think we unfairly initially put an expectation on staff to do that. You know, would you mind doing this as well? And yes, you've been hired for this, but would you mind doing that as well? And it's not, my learning from that was it's not fair. They haven't been hired to do those things. That might not be their skill set. They might not be the person who likes to do that. It's not a fair expectation. And so we've done a lot of restructuring to get Careseekers to where it is today, where there's Lauren and I. We then have a very senior person, our client success manager, who manages all of the account managers. And she feeds everything up to us like that. We've got a very senior finance person. She manages the finance team. Lauren manages the tech and the marketing teams, but they're very competent and capable teams, but she does. So we absolutely have put in place some senior people who report to us, and that's just been wonderful.
Wonderful. I love the client success manager. Is that the title?
Yes.
What a great name. It says what you're supposed to do, right? There's no argument. Who needs a job description with that title? It's pretty clear, right? So Lauren, if you were to rate yourself out of 10 as a leader, 10 being you're amazing and 1 being not so amazing, What? And there's a double barrel question here, right? Yeah, what would you rate yourself, and how would you take it to the next level? What are some of the things you think you need to work on? And I ask this question not to challenge you, although I guess it is, but I ask the question to go for others that are listening, is like, ask this question of yourself and think about what can you do differently.
I'd probably give myself probably around 6, 7, in that I probably work to get to like the 8s and 9s and 10s. I'd probably need to be better at having hard conversations, whereas I tend to avoid them. I tend to not love doing them. So I think if you're a leader, you just have to be okay with them. Yeah. So like, I see my husband in his role, and he's having hard conversations on the hour, every hour. And he's fine. It's like water off a duck's back. And for me, it's like, I get that feeling in my stomach and I don't want to do it. And I'll avoid it at any cost, rather than just like, I think you just have to just get through them,
It's an interesting skill, isn't it? It's a very interesting skill to master and get your head around, because, if you do have any sense of empathy, I've found in my experience with other leaders that, that's what tends to kick in first, is empathy, rather than they know what they have to do, or they know they need to do it now, but it's a struggle to do it, isn't it? Yeah, I do find it a struggle. It's definitely an area I need to improve. Well, you could improve. You don't need to necessarily. You could improve, perhaps. I could. And Marissa, same question of you, of course. So where are you at on the scale, do you think?
I think, and especially when I do a lot of the reading and I see how far I've got to go, I'd put myself probably, 6, 7. Sometimes I read stuff about the way leaders handle things and I'm just blown away. Like that is 10, like it's incredible. And I feel very far away from that. I think 2 things that I feel I need to work on. 1, I can have hard conversations, but they take so much of my energy. I am panicked before I have them. I'm collapsed afterwards. I need like preparation time and recovery time. And I wish I could reduce my preparation and recovery time around having a hard conversation. And the second thing, and it was based on, again, some feedback that an employee who very much value her feedback gave when she left, which was that the energy that I bring to work in the day will then, because I am the leader, will then impact the day and the way people have their day. So if I come in chaotic and stressed, that's going to impact the way that then the team has their day. Likewise, if I come in positive, it's going to impact it. And I think realizing that as a leader, you do set a lot of the tone. And I think my awareness around that and the energy that I bring in hasn't been great to date. I'm walking into work because I've just dropped 2 kids off at school and I've got whatever else I've got on my mind, but you actually just need to stop and take a breath and walk in as the leader and bring the right energy to the room. And if I can't, then I shouldn't walk in that door at that moment or that day.
Dr. Adam Fraser talks about it. I think his first book was called The Third Space, and it create the third space. So, the opposite was, you're coming home from work, you're all stressed, and then you walk straight through the door and the kids are, jumping on you and you're not ready for that, and the dog's done something wrong or whatever. It's like, no, before you get home, a kilometre from home or half a K from home, pull over, change hats. He doesn't say that, I don't think, but change hats and get focused on what's my next role. Find your third space and then go into the space that you need to go into. It's really quite a clever concept.
That's a great concept. Yeah,
love what Adam does. He's a great guy. So I guess, I don't want to harp on this, of course, but here we are in the midst of another lockdown, and we've just found out we're in for another 4 weeks. How do you lead your teams now? Lauren, do you want to take that first up?
Yeah, look, it's so hard leading a team from behind like chats and Zooms, and I think we're very sensitive to the team, given that this is our second lockdown, but it's actually an entirely different team, give or take 1 or 2 people, and they're a great team. So I think the way I tend to lead is like loads of positivity from like the morning, chats in the morning everyone, and little tidbits, and also just letting people, I know what happens and this happened in the last lockdown, is that I think people just felt completely overwhelmed by work because it's the first thing they do, and they just move from bed to desk, and so I just constantly am like, guys, today I actually went to a different coffee shop and it was so much fun. It just felt like something new. I recommend you guys do that. That's what I was telling them today. And just constantly, it's a stunning day outside. Make sure you're getting lots of breaks. The other day I was like, do it like my primary school children, nibble, recess, lunch, afternoon break, just constantly trying to bring some fun and some lightness. We do a quiz and drinks every Friday from 4:30 till 5:15. And just being super available, I guess, for everyone, which obviously is tricky when you're also doing online learning. Yeah. But just, I think even just knowing that you're there for them, even if you can't speak at that point, knowing that they can text you, they can chat with you, they can email you. And yeah, so I guess just bringing a lot of positivity to the team, because I just know a lot of them live on their own. It can be so depressing.
But I get the sense you would do that when they were in the office as well.
Yeah, probably.
So that's nice, right? It's because there's a consistency.
Yeah,
This
definitely.
is not just you being weird.
Yeah, totally. I also, I find it, definitely. It is. I just feel like people just get exhausted during lockdown anyway. I think death by Zoom. I think people just get so tired. And so, I think one does as a leader have to keep the energy up, even when you don't feel it yourself.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But I think, just on that, the other thing is what's good about a lockdown, if you do have that low energy, you can go kind of quiet and silent and almost not respond. Whereas if you're in the office and someone's like, Lauren, and you kind of just want to get on with your work, you almost do have to respond. Whereas I think if you're in lockdown and you just know that you just don't have anything to give, you kind of can just move away from the laptop, turn down the notifications. And so you can always be on when you're on, in a way. It's a bit easier that way.
Yeah, I've seen that my year 4 girls have had a couple of assignments over the last couple of weeks, and it's, online learning, good or bad, or homeschooling, good or bad. And both of mine have gone, it's good and it's bad. And they've been able to see both sides of that and have some fairly interesting arguments of why it's good and bad. So, yeah. Right. And Marissa, how are you coping, managing the rest of the team through this crazy time?
It's interesting, and I guess it's interesting running a business like Careseekers during this time for a number of reasons. I think Firstly, we have to react every single day to the announcements that are made. So when an announcement is, because our workers are essential workers, they are allowed to move in and out of areas. But that announcement might be made that an LGA is going to be an area, and all of a sudden we need to contact every worker in that area to make sure they heard that news. We have to say, do you need support? Do you need a worker permit? We then have people contacting us. I need the vaccine status. So on the one hand, I do need to lead the team to be quite reactive to what is happening every single day, because I might need them to jump out of what they're doing and say, oh gosh, that provider, they need all the vaccine statuses. Can you contact those 50 workers and get that for them? And they do sort of have to drop pens and do what they're doing. And it is hard when you're not, you're not feeling so wonderful when you're in lockdown. So it's a balance of kind of leading them to be reactive, but also Careseekers has been hugely affected by so many things. So for example, like the borders are closed at the moment. A third of our workforce is international people, students, doctors and nurses from overseas. I mean, 37%, I think, of Australia's aged care and disability workforce is from overseas. So, our team might be finding it harder to find workers, so they might be feeling despondent. So what I often try to do is I try to zoom out. What I have tried to do this time is to zoom out with them and go, guys, let's talk about what's in your control and what's not.
Nice.
You can't open the borders, okay? We can't open the borders. We can't set up a vaccination hub. Lauren and I did consider it, but we realised it was one thing we could not do. But there's these big macro things that are going on that you guys cannot control. So I want you to be aware of them, and I want you to know that we are aware of them. And we know you're trying to do your job within those macro issues. So what can you control?
Yeah.
Can't find workers at the moment, but what can you do? Okay, so you can continue to give good, amazing customer support. So focus on that and just setting like really realistic expectations, letting them know what we think are realistic expectations and getting them to strive for that at this point in time. And it might be different from what they expect from themselves if borders were open and what we'd expect from them, but just really calling it and going, this is what we're operating in. And so we don't expect you to be able to, support people to find a worker for every single job that comes through like you normally do. That's completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
Just getting them to reduce at the moment. And I do think of lockdown for a business like ours as survival. If we can just get through these few weeks, do what's necessary, what's absolutely necessary, and put the rest to bed and try look after your well-being, well, that's going to be a big tick to us at the end of lockdown.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And as we come, and draw a close to the podcast, if you were mentoring a up-and-coming leader, what would be some tips you would give them, Lauren?
I think if I was mentoring an up-and-coming leader, I would try and, I think you've got to make sure, I know this sounds strange, but just that they're leading something they believe in, firstly, because I think, to be a leader of something that you don't believe in must be so hard. Because we believe so much in Careseekers, it just doesn't feel like, obviously the actual work feels like work, but leading a team to bring care into people's lives and to give work to people who need it is just so easy. So I would I would make sure they double check that what they are spending their time, building and being a leader of is something that they do truly believe in. And it could be anything as long as they believe in it. I think that's really important. And I also think I would probably, my advice to them would be just to be true to themselves and the kind of person they are. Because I don't think, you can't fake it. You know what I mean? You can't fake the kind of leader you are. It has to be authentic and it has to come, show your personality, whatever that may be, because then I think you're using your strengths. I think it becomes exhausting when you're trying to be something you're not. So I think
they're linked, right?
Yeah,
it's easier to be authentic when you believe in the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. So
exactly,
Marissa, for you, if you were giving somebody some tips, what would you give them?
I think there would be two things that I would say. The first thing that I would say is you actually do know. Like, trust yourself. You are going to be told, and you read all the time, you need a mentor, and you can't do this without a mentor, and you can't do this without this and this. Totally believe in yourself, back yourself. The answers are in you, and you're going to need, not saying that you're not going to use tools and find them, but you'll get there. Just totally trust yourself and back yourself. And you are the person, you've come up with this idea for this business. You know what you're trying to do, and just know that you will get there. Like, it is in you. There's not someone else who's going to come in and be able to, you're not going to get an advisor who's going to solve all your problems, or a mentor, or a CEO or something. Like, it's on you. And the other thing that I would say is, it's hard work. Like, it is really, really, really hard work. And sometimes I think that saying, like, the person who just stays in there the longest kind of comes out the winner, and in a sense, so they should, like, if you've put, that much hard work in, but it is. And I don't think there's any way around that hard work. It's hours that I never thought I would put into work, I put into Careseekers. So I'd reiterate what Lauren's saying, it has to be something you love, because you become beyond married to it. Like, it consumes you. So it's something that you really have to love. But I just think so often I sort of, at points, I was looking for, I don't know if it was a savior or something, like a silver bullet that I thought was going to, or someone who was going to just really, I was going to nut out every single problem with. But the person who knows Careseekers the best is Lauren and I. And every single time we come up with the right answer to the problem, and just trust in yourself on this journey. And I think you'll do well.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. One last question to both of you. Lauren, we just saw your beautiful young daughter just walk on screen for a moment. How old is she?
She's 5.
How's kindy or year 1 maths going? Are you going okay?
Yep, phonics.
You're all over it?
Yeah, all over it.
and
I go from tech roadmaps to phonics to friends of 10.
Your friends of 10. I love friends of 10. Friends of 10 is great. And Marissa, how old is your children?
So I've got an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Okay, so I've got 10-year-olds. So how's that going? What do we got? Year 5 maths?
I've got year 6 and year 2. And year 6 is they're at different schools, and my older daughter's school, they're on Zoom all day. I don't hear a peep from 9 to 3. My younger daughter, she's on Zoom for 20 minutes a day, and the rest of the day it's her and me figuring out jump strategy, maths, and phonics. So
friends of 10s.
It's so hard. I literally, my head is spinning all day. So I sit next to her trying to do my work. I'm helping her. I'm going back to my work. I'm feeling guilty either way. I feel like I should be focusing on what she's doing, or then someone from work is asking me a question. Spinning is the only way I can describe it. I've actually started to split it a little bit more to kind of try work much more at night. And sort of be a bit more for her in the day. But I mean, your staff also needs you in the day, and they have questions that need to be answered in business hours. So it's everyone who's in it. We're not alone. Everyone who's in it knows the feeling, and it's something one will never.
Do we appreciate teachers more now? I think maybe we do.
Oh my gosh, do we ever? Do we ever?
Well, let's close this off. I want to again thank Marissa and Lauren for your time. It's 8:30 now, 9:30 at night, and I really appreciate you giving up your time, given what is happening both at your workplace and at home. A fantastic conversation. Some wonderful tips in there for up and coming leaders, and I think challenges for existing leaders as well. So, ladies, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time.
That's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for your time too. It's your 9.
No problem. Absolute pleasure. We look forward to getting this up online for you and letting you hear it as well. It'll be fun.